followed by a ghost. In June, 7 years ago, I had departed from my secondary school and had moved to high school in the middle of August. Since my high school was pretty far from my home, I had to stay at the dormitory, and that was the beginning of my unforgettable event. Luckily, I was an extrovert, so shortly, I had made new friends as well as used to the new environment. I got no uncomfortable when being far from home, and another thing was my roommates were very friendly and helpful. Just nearly in a week, we were all close to each other like brothers. That high school was pretty new back then. It had been just finished 1 or 2 months earlier. There was a mountain, nearly West Mountain. The school was like in the middle of nowhere. There was just a few convenient stores and houses in the area, but there was a huge beautiful mountain nearby. We had been filled up by the fresh air peacefully. Students like us had a chance to walk there at the weekend. On Saturday, students didn't have to go to classes in the afternoon. My roommates had asked me to come to West Mountain. Their only Benjamin was unable to join us. That day was mild. We packed some snacks and some of our stuff and went to the mountain. The way to get there was beautiful as well. We trekked to the hill while we were watching the scenery around. "Guys, come here." Once we were in the middle of the way up, I heard Jack's voice. One of my roommates called us. "Look, that way." He pointed out nearby and looked pretty surprised. I eyed out curiously and saw a tomb behind the ancient trees. That was what he called us for. Gosh, that was nothing, dude. At the foothill, I saw a cemetery. I had heard from teachers, and some of the seniors had told. There were some cemeteries up here. Since the mountain was a very huge place, people came to bury the deaths very often. No, not that. A tomb would not make me surprised. That tomb was weird. Look carefully, not like those from the foothill. I came up closer, and indeed, that tomb was likely to be an ancient one. I was unsure. That was what the Death's family had tried to build like that, or that tomb had been built there for a long time ago. My father was a fan of antiques, so that ancient-like burial was very attractive to me. I stood in front of the tomb and stared at it for a long while. I felt very comfortable, weirdly, like I have been attracted by it. I stood there frozen and didn't hear any of my friends were calling. "Hey, why are you looking at the tomb like that?" I was unable to give my eye away from the tomb until Daniel soothed my shoulder lightly. I gradually got back my consciousness, but then I got a shiver down my spine. My back was sweaty. I got tired today. Could we make it later another day? Let's head back to the school. At first, we had planned to make it to the top of the mountain, but at that moment, Daniel told us he got exhausted and wanted to head back. Not only that, I also sensed Daniel and Jack were looking at me with their confused eyes. We headed back to the dorm. No one talked. After a few days, my room got some strange events. The first one was my sandals order. I got an obsessed compulsive disorder symptom. Every night, I had to reorganize my sandal to make sure everything was on its orders before bedtime. My roommates had tried to avoid messing my stuff at night. But on the morning after the particular day, we had trekked to the mountain. I saw my sandal lying disorganizedly, which was not expected. "Hey, guys, did anyone borrow my sandal last night?" My obsessive-compulsive disorder drove me crazy every time there was someone touches my stuff, so I had empathized with this point to my friends lots of time prior, but everyone had shaken their head when I asked. That was very outrageous. A few days after, I had to head out early in the morning. Once I arrived at my room, I saw my roommates were all packing their packages. "What the heck? Why are you all leaving? It's great here, isn't it? Or do you guys upset at me? If so, just tell me." My apologies, I didn't mean it. I was so surprised once I heard my 3 roommates would like to leave. I thought that might have misunderstood. "No, we didn't leave because of you. That our family wants us to." Daniel told me, and the others also replied with the same reason. Then, they said goodbye to me and left hurriedly. We didn't even have time for a farewell party. I didn't believe in their reasons, but I didn't want to be mind-numbing, so there was me left as the only one in the room until the other ones would come. Regarding the strange events I have mentioned above, this is just a beginning. On another Saturday, after a few days, all my roommates had left. I got bored and went to the library to find some books. I borrowed a book and back to my room, then laying in the bed until around 1 p.m. I tended to have a snap after 1 hour reading since I had to go to my aunt's place in the afternoon. Weirdly, I recalled that I had read just 2 pages. My aunt came to call me for dinner. I checked my watch, and it was 5 p.m. already. That was irrational. I believed I didn't oversleep. After deducing, nothing could explain how fast the time passed by. It might be I just overslept and didn't recognize. That night, after having dinner with my aunt, I headed back and wanted to hit the sack early. But I was tossing and turning around, so I turned the lamp on, took the book. While reading, suddenly I felt very sleepy. Then I turned the lamp off, put the book back and fell asleep straight away. At 4 a.m., I jolt awake. I felt something extraordinary, so I looked down. I saw I was wearing a t-shirt as if I prepared to go out. The lamp was on. That was out of the ordinary. I had worn a shirt when I had gone to bed earlier. I felt a bit hot under my legs, so I opened the blanket and looked down at my legs. I was wearing my shoes. Another shock came to me. Look carefully, I saw my shoes had been covered with mud and dirt. Also, all my bedsheet was horrible to me. Did I just go out? It's 4 in the morning. When the hell I go out, or I was sleepwalking? Those unexplainable questions popped out on my head, with mud in my shoes. I must have gone somewhere very far from my dorm, probably the mountain nearby. After a while, I believed I had been sleepwalking. I took off my shoes, then took a look at them. I wondered, did I come to the mountain while sleepwalking? Come to think of it, I was a bit scared. I tried to recall, but my memories had stopped at the moment I turned the lamp off. Eventually, I thought of my 3 roommates. I realized that our room was not like before for days before the day they left. As what was happened, I thought they moved out really because of me. I could not understand what had happened. If I was sleepwalking, that would be pretty dangerous. I wanted to find an answer for all of those unusual events. So one day, I came after Daniel after classes to make it clear. I came after Daniel to the parking lot. I knew he always parked his bike at a particular spot. Once we got to the parking lot, there was no one around. Since it was later than usual, Daniel still didn't know about my presence there. At that moment, I came close to him and pulled him to a small corner. "Lucas, don't do this to me. Leave me alone. I don't know anything. Please let me go." Daniel looked frightened. He screams out loud and afraid of me. I was very shocked by his reaction, so I let go of him. Then Daniel stood back to keep his distance from me. "You're scared me out. Don't come close to me." At that moment, Daniel was carefully watching me. His eyes were changed from frightening to scared. He gave a sigh of relief as if he just had a narrow escape. "What? Are you scaring of me? Why are you looking at me like that?" I was very shocked. "Ghost, ghost." Daniel was shaking once he heard my question. He mumbled, but I could read the scene, and his words made me nervous. "A clean hand wants no washing. What ghost? Did you see a ghost in our dorm room then left? You guys even didn't tell me about that? What a good friend." I got mad at him. I thought I didn't do anything wrong to be treated like that. "Yes, it's right. There is a ghost in the room. It's haunting you." We were so afraid the bad things would come to us sooner or later, so we had moved out. Daniel got scared. He was shivering. He was recalling something, then he started to whisper. "Damn it. This is so excessive. Don't dare to think of leaving here until you tell me the whole things, hear me? I was very disappointed with my roommates. I treated them like my brothers, but they had turned away from me like that. I was furious, so I wrapped Daniel's collar. Let me told you. After the day we had come to West Mountain and looked at the tomb, you were not acting as usual anymore. Daniel was started to tell me by his shivering voice. As Daniel told me, I stared at the tomb for a long while, then I started acting untypically. I had stared at the tomb with a glassy-eyed look. Even Daniel and Jack had called me a few times, but I had no reply. I had thought I just stood there for a few minutes. Not just that. Daniel said that after a while of immobility, I started to mumble something and acted very weird. My voice had been not mine. That was a very high-pitched voice. I tried to remember what happened that day, what in my head as I stood there for a while, but no memories of what Daniel told me. After then, I started sleepwalking and scared everyone out of the room. They used to see me jolt awake, then walked in the circle next to my bed one time. They had called me for a while, they tried to stop me, but likely I was unable to hear them out. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Another day, I had mumbled something and hit my head on the wall. My face looked very scary. After a few days of seeing me consecutively like that, they all guessed that I have been followed by someone from another world from the tomb. The ghost followed me to the dorm eventually. They were all terrified and thought for their own safety, so they had chosen to leave quietly. They were so afraid of the ghost that might harm them if they alerted me. After hearing all of that, I could not hold my anger. I gave Daniel a punch on his face. I couldn't believe that my brothers would do that to me. After releasing my anger, I left. I knew what was happening already, so I wanted to end all of that unusual thing. Obviously, that was not the thing I was capable of, but my father could. He must have experienced lots of things and could give me a solution. I called him up and prepared for being showering by scold. Such stupid, no-brain boys. Why did you stand in front of a tomb and talk junk? Why don't you tell me earlier? You must come home right after your roommates moved out, such an idiot. He toned down afterward. He would come to see me in the next 2 more days. He told me to stay calm, praying before going to bed. As promised, he came 2 days after. He brings a wooden box along. My father stood at the door and called me out. My stupid son, come out here. He told me to take him right to the tomb. Then I led the way to West Mountain. Because I just came there once, I could not remember exactly where the tomb was. We had to look around for a while to get there. Once reaching the tomb, my father knelt down his one leg and opened his box. There was a copper pot inside. Then my father took the pot out. There were some pieces of joss paper as well underneath. He started to burn those pieces of joss paper. My dear old friend, in the tomb. My son is just a visitor. He is just a child and didn't mean to harm you. If he did something he shouldn't, on behalf of him, today, allow me to send my apologies to you, and hope you could go easy on my little son from now on. My father looked at the burning joss paper and prayed earnestly. Right after my father finished, the copper pot got shaking loudly. The fire got burned out, turned red. Look like our friend don't want to take our apologies today. My father looked at the pot and the fire. I was scared if I had to live with that friend my entire life. If you don't go easy on him, I'm afraid I had to ask my friends to come to help us out. He is a very talented shaman, please consider. My father looked a bit worried, but his voice was getting more severe and evident. Even I have friended with a shaman, but there are only my son and me here today, so please forgive what my stupid son had done. My father shook my shoulder and talked comfortingly. In the next 3 years, at this date and on holidays as well, my son would come here to burn your incense sticks and joss paper as his respect to you, I promise. Once my father finished, the sounds got smaller and smaller. The fire didn't flame intensely like before anymore. Then, my father burned the whole joss paper left. After all, he collected the dust into a bag and put back the copper pot to his wooden box. After the third negotiation, my father didn't tell me anything else. He took me out of that place. He led the way, so I could not see his face, but I saw his sweaty back. Obviously, he just tried to be calm earlier, even he got scared. I recalled what he had talked the second time at the tomb. That must have been a threat, and verbally. He might not have any shamans as his friends. After that day, I could get back to my normal life. I have a big lesson learned. Whenever you see a tomb, don't ever dare to stare at it. Bow your head or pray, then leave. To avoid the one from another world might follow you home.